Hello and welcome to my channel. I picked up the Mandalorian model kit from Revell. This is kit number 06784 and it's a level 3 difficulty. This kit consists of 60 parts and it's a whopping 1 in 9 scale, which is pretty big for a figure. So if you stack 9 of these on top of each other, you should get the actual height of the Mandalorian. Or at least I think that's how it works. The recommended age for building this kit is 10 and up. Alright, I'm keen to see what's inside. Several bags of plastic. That's a good start. First we'll have a quick look at the instructions. So on the cover we have an example of the finished kit, which is way too clean for me. Then we also have the general painting and assembly guide, plus a visual description of what should come on the sprues in case anything's missing. And the remaining instructions cover the assembly process and painting. It looks like it's suggesting painting as you go, which I'm going to do that this time. And lastly we have our decal sheet, which seems quite full. Time to get rid of these bags and check out the plastic. This one contains the base and the backdrop, and believe me, they are huge. I don't have the shelf space for this kind of size. It's nice to see plenty of detail sculpted in. That's the last thing we want is something quite bland. Right, let's see what's on the next one. This looks to me like it's got a lot of the diorama parts. Stormtrooper helmets, metal containers and stuff like that. Plus I can also see Din Djarin's helmet on there. Speaking of which, this means the third bag must contain Din Djarin himself. And we can see his front and back half moulded in 2 pieces. And it looks like the armour pieces go on separately, which is great, so I can get them up to a nice shine. The cloak has dropped off, but otherwise it looks like all the pieces are there. And I've laid them out just to double check. Time to start snipping. And the instructions say cut out the big guy first. That's what I'm doing. It's just a matter of filing down the edges and removing the tabs. It's better to take our time and get things right now. That way we don't risk having to paint anything twice. Plastic cement is the glue of choice as it welds everything together. So it's just a matter of lining it up and applying pressure for a bit. I use some clips and leave it to set. Once the clips have been taken off, I inspect the edges and see they're neat. Some of them have a slight overlap, so they'll need filing down. And it's quite satisfying to watch all those seam lines disappear, as it helps to make the figure look like one piece. Off camera I primed this guy, and now I'm cracking on with the painting. And at this stage it requires 4 different colours. I don't need to be too neat either, as the overspill is on the area where the arm is going to be. I'm now applying the final colour across the midsection, and that's a light grey. Next I'm working on the left hand. I've already sprayed the gauntlet silver, then the glove and the fingertips are 2 different tones. There's a lot of fine detail on the gauntlet. Adding a couple of drops of panel liner are great for bringing these out. I also do the same for the back side of the gauntlet. And once they've dried, I add a couple of drops of glue and glue them into place. You always have to be careful not to get any glue or anything that's been painted, as it will strip off the paint. The gauntlet clips into place with peg holes, and then I come to my first decal, which is just a little arrow which goes on the back of his hand, and once that's on, it just needs nudging into place. That's the left hand complete. Now it's time to move on to the left foot, although I might as well get the right one built up and painted at the same time. Here you can see the benefits of painting everything prior to assembly, as you end up with crisp, clean lines. I put the right foot to one side for now, as I don't need that for a little while. And the left one can be glued into place. These pegs ensure that everything fits perfectly, and that's always a good sign of a well engineered kit. Next I can slot the armour plate in on his leg. I chose to spray this with gunmetal as it looked more metallic than silver. I have 3 different segments to apply to the front of the left leg, and each piece also comes with a rear section. And once all these pieces are on, we'll have 3 completed rings around his lower left leg, and once again they all slot into place perfectly. So it's just a matter of ensuring that the gap between both halves are not visible. I found an easier way to paint the other small parts, and that's by using these little clamps on the pegs. Now it's time to clip on the front and back of the lower right leg, and with these 2 parts together it creates a peg so I can insert the foot. Now I have to be careful at this point, because I don't want to accidentally get any glue on my fingers and spread it to the painted parts of this model. otherwise I will have to do some patch up work. And now I can add on the next armour piece. This is supposed to be a different colour to the rest, but I wanted them all to match. To finish off the leg, I added the band of disintegration rounds, and as you've seen the show, these are very over the top ammunition. The next item to be glued in place is the holster. This is also attached to the belt, which is in several parts. I added 2 decals to the right hand and forearm, and that's the little red rectangle and the blue triangle. And once those have set, I can put the hand in place, and it's just a matter of lining it up with the pegs and pushing. I have 3 armour plates to put on now, for the shoulder pads and the chest plate. I'm supposed to apply decals to these grenades, but I found it much easier just to paint them red. Besides, decals don't like staying in place in indented areas. I can now clip into place the belt and the bandolier, along with the side piece containing the 3 grenades. And I'm only using a dab of glue on the pegs of these items. There's another armour plate to add for the back section, and we're very nearly finished. The helmet clips on over the neck ball joint, and this will still allow it to swivel, which will be the only movable piece in this whole set. Next, the visor is slotted into place, and now I can finally add the last part of his belt / bandolier, even though most of this will be covered up by the cloak when that goes on next. The cloak is supposed to be one solid piece, but there's a clear gap running through the top of it. This is going to bug me, so I've no choice but to fill it in. And plaster is great for such a task. And after a light sanding, I paint over it, and you can't even tell there was a join there. Now that Mando's completed, it's time to turn my attention to the accessories. We have 2 barrels and 4 Stormtrooper helmets. They just need assembling, painting and weathering. I chose to use grittier colours than those shown on the box art. I sprayed the wall with some brown texture paint, then everything else I applied the paint by hand. So there's basically a door, 2 light fittings and 2 keypads. And these don't have to be anything too fancy, because Star Wars after all is a lived-in universe. I use yellow ochre and black brown for the door, which I think complement each other quite well. And with the back wall being complete, I can attach it to the base. Even though I gave the base a once over with some brown, it's all going to be covered up. In the meantime, I lightly weather these 2 barrels, and it's just a matter of covering it with the brown wash and then wiping most of it off. Next, I'm going to start working the Stormtrooper helmets, and there's 4 of these, so I spray them white and get cracking with the painting. There's a few different areas which need painting black, and the rest of it are decals. Like this band above the eyes is supposed to be decal, but makes much more sense to paint it. And because there's quite a lot of decal to apply, I have to do them in stages, otherwise I run the risk of rubbing them off. And once they're in place, it's always advisable to soak up as much of the water as possible, and I use a cotton bud for this. And once they're done, I can glue them into place. The 2 partial helmets go in the ground, and the 2 full ones on the spikes. I'll go over them all with a little bit of weathering powder, which ages them up a little bit. And now it's time for the messy bit. I dump on loads of PVA glue, then spread it about. Then it's just a matter of sprinkling on some modelling sand, nice and evenly throughout. And this stuff is going to take a good 24 hours to dry. So I slot the Mandalorian into place, then leave it overnight. Once it's dry, I apply a little bit more weathering powder, then seal everything in. And this 1 in 9 scale diorama is now completed. And it's so big that I can't fit it inside my light box or on the turning circle. Adding the model sand makes a big difference, as it makes the diorama look a little bit more believable. And as I said earlier, the only thing that moves on this kit is Din Djarin's head. Otherwise everything else is static. I now have to find some shelving space big enough to fit this guy on. Wish me luck. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if I can do it, so can you.